تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون فغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله، الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله، الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated, and I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and to protect His Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah, we are thankful, and we are happy that Allah Ta'ala has guided us to Islam. Because we would not have been guided to Islam if it were not for the guidance of Allah. We would not have been guided to Islam had it not been for the fact that Allah willed for us to be guided. And the fact that Allah willed for us to be guided and to be Muslims, this is a good sign for us that we are accepted by Allah. And we are thankful and grateful and happy that Allah Ta'ala has guided us to have access to the authentic knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the knowledge that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed and that was passed on generation after generation by the companions, and then by the followers of the companions, and then by the followers of the followers, until reaching our time, in a way that that information can be verified through the chains of narration, so that the knowledge that the Prophet ﷺ came with is preserved, so that people cannot make things up in Islam, and so that nobody can use Islam as a plaything to say whatever they want about the rules that God revealed. So Alhamdulillah that we have been guided to have this access to the authentic knowledge, because the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah is the key to paradise, and the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah is the life of Islam. So this is the second part of the class that we started yesterday, and since RamaDān is either Monday or Tuesday, it behooves us to go over the rules pertaining to fasting and some of the benefits that occur during this month, so that we can do this preparation, so that we can plan to maximize our benefit during Ramadan. So the last thing that we mentioned and the last thing that we were talking about is we were talking about the people who are excused from fasting. So we mentioned that the person who would be harmed, a harm that would make it permissible or valid for him to make tayammum. That's how the scholars of the Islamic law, they refer to that difficulty or that harm as a harm that makes tayammum permissible. So that means if the person fasts, for example, he would die, or he would get sick, or he would lose the function of an organ, or he would become deformed in one of the apparent parts of his body. So this would prevent, or in this case, the person, if he, by using water, any of these things would happen, he would be able to make tayammum. So the same way, if by fasting, if any of those things were to happen, then he would be able to, instead of fast, he would be able to not fast. So that's the first example that we mentioned about the one who is excused from fasting, the one who he would be harmed by fasting. So that's where we left off. We're going to continue with that, inshallah. So the next example of the one who is excused from fasting during Ramadan is the pregnant woman and the nursing woman, the woman who's breastfeeding. If she fears for the fetus, yani for the pregnant woman, if she fears for the unborn baby, and for the breastfeeding woman, if she fears for herself or for the child. So in all those cases, if the pregnant woman fears for herself, or she fears for the fetus, or if the breastfeeding woman fears for herself, or she fears for the child, like for example, like the milk is going to dry up, then in this case, she doesn't have to fast. And they would have to make up that fast if they broke their fast because of that fear. So if she broke the fast because of fear for the child only, yani the pregnant woman, she fears that if she fasted while pregnant she might have a miscarriage, then she would have to make up that fast, and she would pay a expiation. So she would make it up after Ramadan, and then she would pay a fidyah, which in the Shafi'i school would be for every day that she doesn't fast. For that reason, it would be 1 mud of the staple crop. As for if the pregnant woman, if she breaks her fast, or the woman who's breastfeeding, if she breaks her fast with the intention of following a facility in the religion, like because of traveling, then in this case, she doesn't have to pay the fidyah. Also, if she breaks the fast, if she fears for herself, also, then she wouldn't have to pay the fidyah. So alhamdulillah, these are the judgments pertaining to that. And there's different opinions about that as well. Similar to that, about paying the mud and doing the makeup, is the one who breaks his fast to save a respectable animal, like an edible animal, even if it belonged to someone else that was about to perish. So yeah, if you can think of a scenario where if you were to save a respectable animal, even if it wasn't owned by you, and in order to save it, you had to break your fast, then you would be allowed to do it. You would be allowed to break your fast. But the person would have to make it up, and they would have to pay the expiation. Likewise, the one would have to pay the expiation and make up the fast for the one who he delays making up the fasting of Ramadan until the next Ramadan without an excuse. So, like we mentioned last class, sometimes the person is excused. He doesn't have to fast. And he's allowed to not fast during Ramadan. Like let's say the one who's sick. But that sickness doesn't stay for him his whole life. After some time, that sickness will go away. So he will be able to fast again. So when does he have to make up those fastings that he didn't do during Ramadan because he was sick? Since he had an excuse for missing them, his window of time to make up those fasts is until the next Ramadan. And if he delays it, making up those fasts, until the next Ramadan without an excuse, meaning he was able to fast but he procrastinated until now it's the next Ramadan and he hasn't made them up yet. On top of the fact that he has to make it up and he gets a sin, he's going to have to pay something called an expiation, a fidya, which is 1 mud of the staple crop. And this is in contrast to Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, because he does not make it obligatory for the person to pay the fidya, and he says that the person does not commit a sin by delaying, not making up that fast. As for the one that is unable to fast because of being old, or because of being sick with a terminal illness, he doesn't have to make it up because his reason for not fasting doesn't go away, it stays. And so the person who has a terminal illness, and so he breaks his fast, and then, for one reason or another, he becomes cured, and he had paid the fidya, because the way that it works is, if the person is terminally ill and he's not able to fast because of that during Ramadan, for each day that he doesn't fast, and during that day that he's in, he pays for that day. So he pays day by day. So let's say that happened with him and he paid fidya the whole month. Then Ramadan was over and then, mashallah, not according to the norm, he was cured from that terminal illness. So now what happens? He doesn't have to do anything after he gets cured. He's not obligated to do anything after getting cured. No. طيب. So now we're going to talk about the intention. Because in order for the fasting to be valid, you have two integrals. There's two components to fasting that the person needs to follow or to fulfill so that he can make sure that his fasting is valid. The first one is the intention. And this is referred to, according to the Islamic law, in their terminology, tabyitun niyyah. And it means making the intention occur between the Maghrib and the Fajr of the day that you want to fast. So, let's say we want to fast tomorrow. Let's say someone has to make up a fast, or they have another vow, or they have a habit, a wird, that they fast, for example, every other Sunday. So it falls on this, at this time, he has to fast. So for example, he's going to do his habit of fasting tomorrow. So what is in order for that fast to be valid, what he has to do, he has to make the intention sometime between Maghrib, for example today when the sun set, and the Fajr of tomorrow. So that his fast would be valid tomorrow, so that he will be considered that he's fasting tomorrow, he has to intend between Maghrib and Fajr. And this is called tabyitun niyyah. meaning making the intention fall between the Maghrib and the Fajr. So that's the first thing. So there's some details related to this that we're going to review, and some that maybe we haven't heard before. So first thing to know is the intention is lightning quick. It's not something that is complicated or that takes a long time. The intention is fast as the blink of an eye because it occurs in the heart. That's the intention. So let's give an example. Let's say that you were sitting on the couch, and let's say that you felt thirsty or hungry and you wanted to get something from the fridge. It's the norm of us, as soon as that happens in our heart, what do? We get up. You don't say before you get off the couch, I now intend to go to the kitchen to grab water and to make a sandwich, and then you get up. No, as soon as you made up your mind that what you want to do, like as soon as you know that you want to go to the kitchen, you stand up and you go. Why are you going to the kitchen? You don't get to the kitchen and say, did I intend to come here to get water and to make a sandwich? You get confused about that? No, you know why you're there. You know why you got up and why you went to the kitchen. You know why you got up and you opened the fridge. Because you want to drink a water. Because you want to make a sandwich. So that's the way for fasting. When, for example, let's say tomorrow, we're going to check for the hilal. If we see it, then Monday is going to be the first day of Ramadan. So on Sunday, March 10th, is it March 10th, Sunday? Tomorrow? Tomorrow, after Maghrib, we're going to see let's say we see the crescent. So once we see it, what do we know automatically? Tomorrow is the first day of Ramadan. So what are your first thoughts going to be? I'm going to fast tomorrow. I'm going to set my alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning so that I can wake up before Fajr, so I can drink some water, so I can have some suhoor, so I can, make it through the day of fasting. Because some people, they really need that, they need to fill their bellies and they need to, so that they can function. But remember, the point of fasting is to cleanse the self internally, and to cleanse the heart, etc. So yes, the hunger and thirst, it is a difficulty, but it is something worth it. But so that's the intention. The intention equals your motive, your reason why you're doing the thing. So once you know, for example, you hear all the Muslims, they saw the hilal, they saw the crescent in Indonesia, they saw the crescent in China, they saw the crescent in Jordan. All the Muslims are going to be messaging each other on WhatsApp, sending each other congratulations, Mubarak, Ramadan started. Is any Muslim going to not think about fasting the next day? Every Muslim is going to think about fasting the next day. That's the intention. You have to make sure that you intend in your heart, that you have present in your heart that you're going to fast tomorrow, a day of Ramadan. And you don't have to visualize words in your mind. You don't have to visualize, I now intend, or I intend to fast tomorrow, a day of Ramadan, this year for the sake of Allah. You don't have to do that. Because it's automatic. It's once you know what you're doing, once you're conscious and aware, automatically it's in your heart. So that's a way for the person to avoid whispers. Now it is true someone might forget, and it might be absent from their heart completely. That's true, that might happen. If that happens and the person doesn't intend and they wake up and it's after Fajr, then they're not fasting that day, according to a Shafi'i, because it has to be the intention before Fajr. Now, so making the intention is between the Maghrib and the Fajr of every day of Ramadan in the heart, even before breaking the fast. Somebody might ask that. So let's say you have fasted today, and then as soon as Maghrib is in, what do? You intend to fast the next day. So that's valid even if you didn't break your fast yet. And so the reason that this is a component integral of fasting, for the validity of fasting, is due to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man lam yubayyit as-siyam qabla al-fajr, fala siyam lah," which means the one who did not make the intention between the Maghrib and the Fajr, and before the Fajr, then that person has no fast. And so if the sun sets upon the fasting person and he intends before breaking his fast to fast the next day of Ramadan, and then he did not repeat the intention, this is enough. This is sufficient. So he is not obligated to repeat the intention after eating suhoor. Maybe some ignorant people think that. And this judgment, it includes the child, because indeed his fasting, if he was umayyiz, is valid, and so he has to have an intention, between the Maghrib and the Fajr. Otherwise, his fasting will not be valid. And as you know, the guardians are obligated to order the mumayyiz child who's 7 lunar years old to fast. Even though they themselves are not obligated, we as guardians are obligated to order them to fast. And this is for the obligation, for the obligatory fast, whether it's Ramadan or a vow or a makeup fast, makeup obligatory fast. The intention has to be done between Maghrib and the Fajr of the day of fasting. As for the recommended fast, it is valid to intend before the declination of the sun, before the sun declines from its zenith. So that's for the recommended fast. The second thing is that in the intention, the person, he has to make the intention for each day. So he has to intend to fast the next day, that is from Ramadan, for whatever he's fasting. So if he's going to fast Ramadan, he has to intend, tomorrow I'm fasting a day of Ramadan. And if he is fasting because of a nadr, he has to intend that he's fasting for a nadr, which is a vow. If he's fasting to pay an expiation, then he has to intend that his fasting is for an expiation. So the one who is obligated, or the one who wants to fast as an expiation, what's an obligation upon him in the intention is to intend at night between Maghrib and Fajr to fast the next day because of an expiation. And he doesn't have to specify what kind it is. He doesn't have to say an expiation for breaking an oath. Like when somebody says, Wallahi. For example, somebody says, I swear by Allah, I will never drink tea again. Right? He made this swear. So this is permissible to do because it helps the person to, really keep his, stick to his word, because he swore by Allah. But if because of some time passed or he felt weak and he decided like he can't live without drinking tea ever again, so he drank tea again. So now what happened is that he broke his oath. This is not sinful. He doesn't commit a sin by that, but he has to pay an expiation. And so part of that expiation, in a certain order, if he doesn't do certain other things, then he has to fast for 3 days. So when he is going to do that fast, he has to specify in his intention that it's for an expiation. But he doesn't have to say it's an expiation for breaking my oath. He just has to specify that it's for an expiation. Also, the person, he is not obligated to intend that it's an obligatory fast. Now the scholars, they said the most perfect intention for Ramadan is I now intend to fast tomorrow, fulfilling the obligation of Ramadan this year for the sake of Allah, seeking the reward from Allah. So that is the complete intention. Now you don't have to visualize those exact words, you just have to have that meaning present in your heart. So according to Imam Shafi'i, you have to intend for each day. So each night before the day of fasting, you have to make sure you intend. Therefore, it is not enough to intend at the beginning of the month for the whole entire month. And that is because, and according to the reasoning of Imam Shafi'i, that is because each day of fasting is an independent act of worship, just like each prayer is an independent act. You have the intention for each prayer. As for Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, he said it is enough for the person to intend on the night of the first day of Ramadan for the entire month of Ramadan. So he would have present in his heart, I intend to fast 30 days of the month of Ramadan this year. So according to Imam Malik, the person, he has the ability to do that. So this is a difference of opinion amongst the scholars of the Islamic law, where we can follow this one or that one. So for example, since we know that that's the case, we intend, for example, according to Imam Malik, at the beginning of the month, that we're going to fast 30 days of Ramadan. And we also would go according to a Shafi'i and each night intend. So it would be covered on both sides. Just in case, for example, there happens to be a night where, let's say you fell asleep before Maghrib, and then you woke up after Fajr, and you missed iftar. SubhanAllah, by accident obviously, because you fell asleep. But then there's no intention. So you fast when you want to have a fast. Or, after Maghrib you fell asleep but you forgot to intend. So according to Imam Malik, it would be covered if you did that at the beginning of the month and made the intention for the whole month. As for the one who did not intend on the first night, then he has to inevitably intend for every single day. So that's saying, according to Imam Malik, it applies to the first night of Ramadan. So if he doesn't do it on the first night, then for each single night he has to intend. Now if the person doubts after Fajr, so when does the doubt take place? After Fajr. He doubts, did he make his intention before Fajr? So after Fajr, he doubts, did I make my intention to fast before Fajr? Or he doubts, when he's making the intention, is Fajr in or not? His fasting is not valid. So the first case, after Fajr is in, he doubts, did I make the intention before Fajr? His fast is not valid. Second scenario, he doubts, when he's making the intention, he doubts, is Fajr in now or not? His fasting will not be valid. This is in contrast to if he doubts after the intention. If he doubts after he makes the intention, so he made the intention already, and then after that he doubts, did Fajr, was Fajr in when I made the intention? Or he doubts when he made the intention before Maghrib or between Maghrib and before Fajr, and he remembers even if it was some days later, then his fasting is valid. So in this case, in the case where it's valid, after he made the intention, then after that, he thought about, or he doubted, was Fajr in when I made it? So this is after he made it. So in this case, it's not invalid. Or he doubts about, for example, he woke up and then the day is going. And then after, for example, sometime in the morning, he starts to doubt. Last night, did I intend? Did I intend last night? So in this case, if he remembers that he did, even after some days, then that fast is valid. Likewise, if a person, and it's valid, if he doubts about his intention of the day that he just finished fasting. So let's say he fasted the whole day, then after Maghrib, he doubted, did I make the intention for that day? It doesn't harm. It doesn't harm him. And if his intention to fast happened in sync with the appearance of the dawn, then it's not valid, and it was said that it's valid. So there's a difference of opinion about it. Do I have any questions about the intention before moving on to the second integral of fasting, which is to abstain from the invalidators? And then we're going to list them. Now. Yes, the first one is, if the person doubts after Fajr, did he make his intention before Fajr? Did my intention occur before Fajr? So after the Fajr time is in, he doubts within himself. He thinks, did I make my intention before the Fajr? In this case, it's not valid. His fast is not valid. Or he doubts when he's making the intention, is Fajr in right now or not? And did Fajr start or not? Also, it's not valid. No. Is that? So now we're going to talk about the invalidators of fasting. So these are the things that the Muslim has to avoid during the day of Ramadan so that his fasting could be valid. The first thing that the author mentions is al-imsaku anil jima', which means to abstain from sexual intercourse. So among the conditions for the validity of fasting is to abstain from sexual intercourse. That is, for the fasting person to make himself abstain from having sexual intercourse in what is called in Arabic a farj, which can be translated as private part or vagina, even if it was an animal, and even if it was with a barrier or without a barrier. So the one who does that while knowing that this is forbidden, and on purpose, meaning the person is not forgetting that they're fasting, and willingly, meaning that they weren't compelled or coerced, that person breaks their fast. So for the invalidators of fasting, these three conditions have to be present. That the person knows that it's forbidden, that the person is remembering that they're fasting, and that the person did it willingly, meaning they weren't forced or compelled or coerced. As for if the person did not know that it is forbidden to have intercourse while fasting because of that person being a new Muslim, or because of that person growing up in a land that is far away from the knowledge, or the person forgot that he was fasting, or the person had intercourse while being threatened with death and the like, that person does not break their fast. And similar in this judgment, or the same in this judgment, is the person who is penetrating and the one who is being penetrated. That in the judgment of the one who does it while knowing it's forbidden, while remembering that they're fasting without being coerced, the one who's penetrating and the one who penetrates, they both break their fast. And the difference between them is that the one who is penetrating and the one who is penetrated is in the expiation. Because the one who breaks his fast with the sexual intercourse without an excuse during Ramadan, he has to pay an expiation. That is the man, the one who is penetrated, and not upon the woman, the one who is penetrated. Because her reason for breaking her fast is not the same. And her reason for breaking her fast is inserting a substance that has volume into her body cavity through an open inlet. And so there's no expiation for that. We're going to skip the details about the confused hermaphrodite. We'll save that for a special session. The next thing that the author mentioned is making the mani exit, which is called in the Islamic law al-istimna, and they define it as istikhraj al-mani binahwi al-yad. And in English they might say masturbation. But the thing that makes the fast invalid is not just the act, it's the actual exiting of the fluid. So, but we're going to say masturbation just for the technical terminology. So, among the things that the fasting person has to avoid is masturbation. And that is making the mani exit with other than intercourse. This breaks the fast, whether it was with the person's own hand, or with the hand of his wife, or because of a kiss, or because of we'll just say humping without a barrier. This is called in Arabic al-mudaja. So this breaks the fast if the person knew that this is forbidden and they were remembering that they're fasting and they were not forced. And the person breaks the fast whether they intended to ejaculate or not. As for touching, the one who their wudu is not broken by touching them, like the mahram, if the mani comes out without his intention or without him that he's seeking to ejaculate, his fast would not be broken. Otherwise it would be broken. And the kiss does not make the fasting person break their fast as long as he does not ejaculate. Al-Imam Malik narrated from the hadith of Aisha that she said, the Prophet ﷺ used to kiss some of his wives while he was fasting, and not like the passionate kiss that some people might think. For example, like a kiss on the cheek. So then that's the proof that it's permissible to do that. And as long as you don't ejaculate. The next thing that breaks the fast is inducing vomiting. So making yourself vomit breaks the fast. Like the person who puts a finger into their throat or something down their throat so that they can throw up. Just by doing that, the person breaks their fast. And of course, if he knows that this is forbidden, he is remembering that he's fasting and he's not compelled. And his fast is broken whether or not any of the vomit goes back inside of him. And that is because of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ ذَرَعَهُ الْقَيْء فَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ وَمَنْ اسْتَقَاءَ فَعَلَيْهِ قَضَاء. Which means the one who is overwhelmed by vomiting, let's say someone, they were fasting and then because they were sick, they vomited without their own control, it wasn't under their control, then that person doesn't break their fast just because of that. And the one who makes himself throw up, his fast is broken. That's what the hadith says. And this is in contrast to clearing out the sinuses or clearing out the phlegm that one has in their lungs, this does not break the fast. Also among the invalidators of fasting is apostasy. So among the conditions for the validity of fasting is to abstain from apostasy, yani to abstain from interrupting one's Islam throughout the whole day of Ramadan. Now of course, we have to avoid apostasy throughout our whole lives. But specifically in the chapter of fasting, the scholars of the Islamic law, they mention it, that we have to avoid apostasy because the one who commits apostasy while fasting, his fast will be broken. So the one who commits apostasy, even for a moment, during the day, his fast is invalid. Just like his prayer would be invalid. Whether his blasphemy was because of a word or an action or a belief. فَمَنِ ارْتَدَّ وَلَوْ لَحْظَةً مِنَ النَّهَارِ بَطَلَ صَوْمُهُ كَالصَّلَاةِ سَوَاءٌ كَانَ كُفْرُهُ بِالْقَوْلِ أَوْ الْفِعْلِ أَوْ الْاعْتِقَادِ. So basically, and this is something very important to know. Why? Because some people, subhanAllah, very strange, very odd. Some people, when they get frustrated, when they get upset, they curse Allah. Na'udhu billah. This is an ugly thing. If they stub their toe, they curse Allah. If it starts raining and the windows are open, they curse Allah. If somebody knocks over the milk, they curse Allah. If somebody, let's say, knocked on the door really hard and it bothered them, they curse Allah. Na'udhu billah. If, let's say, they ordered some shawarma and they got the order wrong, they said, no, batata. They curse Allah. Na'udhu billah. To them, it's like drinking water. That's because of ignorance. This is a bad habit. So the one who curses Allah, whether in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan, he exits from Islam. In the case of Ramadan, if the person does it while they're fasting, their fast gets broken. Once they exit from Islam, their fast is broken. And they're obligated to return immediately to Islam, and they have to refrain from everything that the fasting person abstains from during the rest of the day. And then immediately after the Eid, they have to make it up. That's the judgment. It's not like, oh, the person broke their fast, and now that it's a free-for-all, now they can drink and eat and do whatever. No. Even if a person, they broke their fast with eating and drinking, still it's haram on them to eat and drink more. Because it's during Ramadan. Because the day of Ramadan has a respect and an honor that makes it forbidden for the unexcused person to eat during that time. SubhanAllah. And so it's something that the person needs to watch out during Ramadan, because for some people, when they're hungry, what don't they make commercials like that? They say hangry. When the person is hungry, they get it's easy for them to get upset. So you got to be careful when you're fasting, not to let your hunger and your thirst cause you to do something that is bad. SubhanAllah. This goes back to, remember we said in the last class, that Ramadan is a season of purifying the self. It's a season of reforming the self. It's a season of disciplining the self. So if your self is like a spoiled child, that every single inconvenience that you have, any minor inconvenience, then you want to do injustice and you want to be a tyrant and you want to curse or you want to commit sins, this is a time for you to check yourself and to change yourself before it's too late, before death comes to you. Another validator of the fasting is what mostly everybody knows, or what mostly people associate with eating and drinking, but it is broader than that. It's not just specific to eating and drinking. So it's defined as inserting anything that has a size into the body or into the inside of the body through an open inlet. So that includes food and drink, which is usually what people put inside of themselves. So we have to avoid inserting anything that has a size into our bodies, even if it was really small, like a sesame seed, and even if it was something that was not edible, like a rock or a pebble. And likewise, if that part of the body, the internal part of the body that it was put into, is not an internal part of the body that digests. So whether it goes inside of a place that digests or not. And so the scholars, they mention that, like for example, if the person stabs themselves in the stomach and the knife reaches their stomach, their fast is broken. Or if they stab themselves in the head until it reaches their brain, their fast is broken. Because they technically inserted something that has a size into their body cavity, even though it's not a place of digestion. But so then the Shaykh said, whoever takes something that has a volume inside of them through an open inlet, while knowing that this is forbidden, while remembering that they're fasting, and without being forced, like under the threat of death and the like, such a person breaks their fast. So what do we consider inside of the body? The cutoff point for that is the exit of the letter ha. So before that, and before the exit of that letter, which is in the middle of the throat, the ha is in the middle of the throat. So what's above it is considered to be outside of the body. And what's below it is considered to be inside of the body. So whatever goes in through the mouth and it goes beyond the exit of the letter ha is considered that this thing went inside, and so it breaks the fast. And that's according to one saying. ومن الجوف مخرج الحاء فما جاوز من الفم إلى مخرج الحاء هو مفطر هذا على قول وعلى قول إلى مخرج الهمزة والهاء. So according to one saying, like we mentioned, it's the ha, and according to another saying, it's the hamza and the ha. The hamza and the ha, they're lower. The hamza and the ha, their exit is at the bottom of the throat. So according to one saying it's the ha, according to one saying it's the hamza and the ha. Also, what passes the sinuses or the bridge of the nose, al-khayshum is called in Arabic al-khayshum, this hard part here. What passes beyond it also, and what's before this part is outside of the body. And what's inside of this, beyond this part and inside, is considered to be inside of the body. So if something went in your nose and you sniffed it up beyond that point, then it's considered that you put something inside of your body. So if something doesn't go beyond that part, the person doesn't break their fast. So if there's a little water, let's say their nostril, and it doesn't go all the way up past the bridge of their nose, their fast is still valid. ولا يفطر ما لم يجاوز الخيشوم وما جاوز الإحليل وهو مخرج البول فيه خلاف في مذهب الشافعي والمعتمد من حيث النظر أنه لا يفطر. So the urethra, which is the place where the urine exits from, there's a difference of opinion about it in the Shafi'i school, and what's relied upon is that it does not break the fast. Now if the woman, if she puts her finger inside of her vagina to what is beyond what shows from her vagina when she squats, for example, like to use the bathroom, she breaks her fast. So the woman should be careful during the fasting. like when she's making istinja, for example. Likewise, the enema, which is inserting some medicine or something like that into the rectum, this breaks the fast. Or likewise, if it was through the vaginal opening, this breaks the fast. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, the thing that is inserted that reaches to the place where the enema goes in breaks the fast. And what does not reach to that place does not break the fast. As for, according to a Shafi'i, if the person inserts his finger into his anus, even if it was a little bit, and it beyond what is needed for the rubbing of istinja, the person breaks the fast. So according to a Shafi'i, the person needs to be careful. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, he has a little bit more, let's say, room to work with. But according to a Shafi'i, if it goes beyond the area or the amount that is needed for istinja, then it breaks the fast. As for eye drops, this does not break the fast in the school of Imam Shafi'i. Even if the person feels some of the, or tastes, let's say, some of the eye drops. Because you know the tear ducts, they're connected, it's all connected. So if you put some drops in your eyes, you might feel in the back of your throat like the taste of that. So that doesn't break the fast. If it was the case that you put the drop in your eye and it went in through your tear duct and it went in through your sinuses into the back of your throat, that does not break the fast. As for if the person puts the drops in his eyes and somehow those drops, they reach to the apparent part of his mouth and the person swallows it, then he breaks his fast. And the apparent part of his mouth, like his tongue. Now, it does not break the fast if something other than a particle that has volume, that has a size, if something other than a thing that has a size enters into you, that does not break the fast. Like what? Like the smell of incense. Right? So say you burn incense, there's, the smell, the good smell in the air. You smell that good smell, right? How do you smell that good smell? With your nose. You smell the air, it goes inside of you. That does not break the fast. Because it's just a smell. It's just a scent. Even if the person on purpose, he goes into a place and they have incense, let's say, and he goes like that. He smells the smell of the incense. This does not break the fast. Because it's just the smell. He's not inhaling the smoke. He didn't put his nose right there with the smoke and inhale it, because then now you got smoke inside. He's just smelling the good smell. Except that, the Shaykh continues, except that smoking cigarettes and, for example, inhaling the smoke breaks the fast. Because the cigarette has pieces that, they're very small pieces, that they separate and they go inside of the body. In contrast to the incense. The incense is just burning in the air. And you smell the good smell. That doesn't mean that the particle of smoke is entering inside of you. It just means that the air now has acquired this scent. But the cigarette is literally particles going inside of you. So it breaks the fast. Yeah.
Smoking the cigarette will break the fast, but smelling the smoke of the cigarette if someone is smoking next to you.
The same as the incense. The same case as the incense. Does not break the fast. And the smoking it, and that's what we say, the cigarette, the smoking it, like, taking a drag and inhaling it, that breaks the fast. Same thing with the shisha, or the hookah, or the hubble bubble. The particles are going inside of you, so that breaks the fast. But if, let's say somebody was smoking a cigarette and they blow the smoke in the air, and you smell that smell, like the smell of smoke, that doesn't break your fast, because it's not the smoke going inside of your nose, it's the smell. Just like the incense, the case of the incense. Now if somebody, for example, there was somebody smoking and the tip of their cigarette, there's a line of smoke coming out, the person puts their nose there and sniffs it inside, then yeah, that breaks their fast. But not smelling the smell. Likewise, the fast is not broken by whatever is absorbed through the pores of the skin. So you put some oil on your skin, and let's say if you take some radish oil, you put it on you, and the oil gets absorbed into the skin, that doesn't break your fast. Or let's say you put kuhl on your eyes, that doesn't break your fast. As for the ear, there's a difference of opinion about that. Some said it is an open inlet, and some said it is not. So some said whatever enters into the ear and goes past the apparent part of the ear into the inside, whether it's water or whether it's medicine or oil, this breaks the fast. And some of them said it does not break the fast. So you can go either way on that. Now, what is overlooked? The dust is overlooked. So let's say you're walking down the street and it's dusty. It's like a dusty road. And it goes inside of you. This is overlooked. This does not break the fast. And the scholars even said, even if the person on purpose opens their mouth. Likewise, the flour, when it's being, when you put it into the, what is that thing? It's like a filter. There's a name for it. It's like a mesh. Strainer. So the flour, when it's going through the strainer, there's a lot of dust coming up. This does not break the fast. Also, the dust of the chalk that comes off of the board. Now, nowadays, many people, they don't use chalk anymore. They use the whiteboards. So if some of that dust from the chalk, it goes inside of them without doing it on purpose, then this does not break the fast. Likewise, it does not break the fast if the person swallows their own pure saliva and that has not exited from their mouth. So, if the saliva is still in the person's mouth, it's still connected to their tongue, even if it was to the apparent part of their lips. The person, they can still swallow that saliva. ويعفى أيضا عن الريق الخالص الطاهر من معدنه أي ما لم يخرج عن الفم بأن ينفصل عن اللسان ولو إلى ظاهر الشفة. So if the saliva of the person, it separates from his tongue, even if it were to the front of his lips, then this is considered to be not from the origin of the saliva. So it's overlooked if the saliva is still inside the mouth. Now, in that case, like let's say if a person, they have saliva, like gathered, a clump of saliva on their lips. Now this is considered to be outside of their mouth. They cannot swallow that back in. So that would break their fast. But that's like, who does that? The moisture on the lips does not break the fast. The moisture on the lips does not break the fast. So let's say the person licks their lips while they're fasting, and then they lick their lips again, and then they swallow. This does not break their fast. Because it's just wetness. It's not actual the actual saliva. أما مجرد البلل فلا يؤثر. As for the saliva that is mixed with other than saliva among the pure things, this does break the fast if it enters into the body cavity. Likewise, the filthy saliva. So if the person, he gathers the spit inside of his mouth and then he makes it go out of his mouth, and he makes it exit on his tongue, or let's say he gathers it on his tongue, then he sticks his tongue out with spit on his tongue, and then he puts his tongue back in and he swallows it on purpose, his fast is not broken. As for the saliva that is mixed with blood from the gums, the scholars have a difference of opinion about it. Some of them said, if the saliva becomes pure, and if it's not, let's say, red, and if it just becomes saliva again, just saliva, and it doesn't have any traces of that blood, and then he swallows it, before he washes his mouth, he breaks his fast. And some said, if the saliva becomes clear from the blood, and then he swallows it, even without washing his mouth, he does not break his fast. And whoever swallows his saliva from his siwak, or from a thread, after it has gathered upon it, and he has taken it out of his mouth, and then he puts it back in his mouth, then he breaks his fast. Yeah, saliva. Yeah, when we say saliva, we mean, yeah, meaning like it's gathered, not just the moisture. Remember, the moisture doesn't break the fast. So if you lick your lips and if your lips are wet, it doesn't break the fast. Like we said, مجرد البلل لا يؤثر. Like also the person uses siwak. Just because the siwak is moist, and he used it, obviously it's going to be moist. It's not like there's actual clumps of saliva on it. It's just wet from being in your mouth. You can use the same siwak again. Same thing for the thread. Like you know how when you're sewing, you put the thread in your mouth so that you can stick it through the eye of the needle easier. So that wetness on the thread, if you use the same thread again, it doesn't break the fast. As for the needle in the vein, or the needle in the muscle, this does not break the fast. Likewise, the anesthetic, the needle that is put into the gums, that does not break the fast, except if it changes the person's saliva and he swallows it. Likewise, the IV doesn't break the fast. As for the one who some water went inside of him when he's making wudu, when he is doing the rinsing of the mouth or the rinsing of the nose, here there's a detail. If he exaggerated in that and made the water enter inside of him and he swallowed it without his will, his fast is broken. Because the fasting person, it is disliked for him to exaggerate in rinsing his mouth and rinsing his nose when he's making wudu. Same thing for the ghusl. As for if it wasn't because of his exaggeration, or his exaggeration was not because of him doing something disliked, it was for a religious reason. Like they say he had some blood in his mouth, he wanted to clear it out, and he wanted to make sure that it was cleared out, and because of it he swallowed some water without his will, then his fast is not broken. So here's a benefit. Al-Adra'i, which is a famous jurist, he said, it is not far-fetched to say that whoever has been inflicted with bleeding gums to the extent that it happens to him all the time or most of the time, that this would be overlooked, being categorized as something that is difficult to avoid. And it would be sufficient for him just to spit out the blood, and the traces of it would be overlooked. Because there is no way to make him obligated to wash his mouth out throughout the entire day. Okay, so that's a benefit for someone that is afflicted with that. May Allah protect us, Ameen. If the person sleeps and when he wakes up, he swallows his saliva, and then he realizes, and it becomes apparent or clear, and he knows later that his saliva was changed with blood that had come from his gums while he was sleeping, his fasting is invalid. And so he would stay. Abstaining from what the fasting person abstains from throughout the whole day, and then he makes it up after Ramadan. And the one who ate thinking that Fajr is not in, and then later he knows and realizes that it was in, his fasting is also invalid. And he has to abstain and make it up.
What if he ate while doubting if it is not sure?
Doubting if it's in?
He was doubting that he kept eating. It's not, it's not
They say al-aslu baqa'u al-waqt. So based on that, he wouldn't break his fast if he's doubting. Al-Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa, they said that swallowing the balgham, which is the phlegm that comes from the lungs, does not break the fast, except if the person makes it come out to the apparent part of his mouth and then he swallows it back. So if you can make the phlegm go to the apparent part of your mouth, spit it out. It's not permissible to swallow it anyways, even outside of Ramadan. As for the one who eats or drinks while he is forgetting, his fast is not broken. Now, to conclude, we'll mention some random benefits. The one who sees somebody else during Ramadan eating while forgetting, you assume that they're forgetting during the day, then he's obligated to remind him that he has to fast. That he's obligated to remind him that he's fasting. So let's say this happens might be like the first couple of days. You're in the house and then someone is eating something, and you know that, for example, they're not on their period, or you know that they're supposed to be fasting, but they're forgetting, obviously. So you have to remind them. It's an obligation. The second benefit, it is sunnah for the one who is fasting to hasten, to hurry to break his fast and to delay his suhoor. And that is because of the hadith, لا يزال الناس بخير ما عجلوا الفطر. The third benefit is it is recommended for the fasting person to break his fast with a date. If he doesn't find it, then with water. And that is because of the hadith of Ahmad and At-Tirmidhi and others. إذا أفطر أحدكم فليفطر على تمر فإن لم يجد فليفطر على ماء فإنه طهور. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. There's a few more validators, like losing sanity for even a moment and fainting the entire day. And that's it. Any questions about that before we end?
What is the kafara of the nursing woman?
It's 1 month. Yeah.
It depends on the staple food in the country.
Sahih. That has to be the most common staple food. But in all cases, wheat is valid, because wheat is the highest.
But the pregnant woman, if she fears for the baby, she can break fast and she has to make up and kafara.
No. Go ahead.
Can we excuse us for fasting?
Yeah, according to the saying that the ear is not an open inlet, you can. Otherwise, if the Q-tip goes beyond the apparent part of the ear, then it will be inside. And according to the other saying, it would break the fast. Now, any other questions? Oh, yeah. One last thing is beware of those that they claim that Ramadan begins with calculations. Those people, they are misguided and they're not following the hadith and they're not following the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No. Yes. So just like we mentioned in the first class, it is a condition for the validity of any act of worship, and of course for the validity of fasting, that the person be a Muslim. We mentioned that condition yesterday. So in order for the fasting to be valid, and in order for the fasting to be for the person that is counted for them on Judgment Day, they have to be Muslim. And that means to have the firm belief, without a doubt, that nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah, that Allah is the only creator, He's the only one without a beginning, therefore He does not resemble anything, and nothing is like Him, and Allah Ta'ala is attributed with all proper perfection, and He's clear of all imperfection. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whatever attributes and attribute of creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And also to believe firmly that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger, sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed. So everything that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us about, and that's confirmed for us that he said it, we have to believe in it 100%. That is the basic meaning of the Shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And it is the minimum that is necessary for the person to be judged as a Muslim. So if anyone believes that Allah is sitting on the throne, they're not Muslim. If anyone believes that Allah comes up and down and moves up and down, they would not be a Muslim. If someone believes that Allah has children, then they wouldn't be a Muslim. If someone believes that Allah is a light, then they wouldn't be a Muslim. And meaning, they would be outside of Islam. We don't mean like metaphorically they're not a Muslim, like they're not a perfect Muslim. No, we mean they would not be judged as Muslims. Not by us and not by Allah. And if they die that way on Judgment Day, they're going to be tortured forever and ever in hellfire. That's why the creed is so important. Because dying as a Muslim is what saves you from going to hell forever. And it guarantees mercy. So that's why this belief, or that belief, the basic belief in Allah and His Messenger, is the best good deed. It's the most important thing. that we must do and that we must have, and is the most precious thing that we can have, because it is through Islam that we have a chance for mercy. And without Islam in the hereafter, the person, he will not have any mercy. And so what we need in the hereafter is that mercy. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Does anybody else have any questions? Tayyib, looks like the pizza is here. نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.